call the meeting to order, Board of Zoning Appeals for August 9th, 2021. First up on the agenda is approval of minutes from the July 26th, 2021 meeting. So,
second.
Motion by Mr. Fuller, second by Mr. Foster to approve. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries 4-0. Next up is continuance from the last meeting on July 26th, which is BZA 2021-014, dimensional variance request by Case Marketing Company for 2105 East County Line Road with 4 specific variances within the request. All those wishing to present for or against, please stand and be sworn in by our secretary.
You swear under penalties for perjury, testimony about the true, the best or not?
Yes. You would approach the podium and tell us why you're here. Name and address for the record first, please, sir.
Yeah, thank you. My name is Patrick Moon, 8910 Purdue Road, Indianapolis, Indiana.
All right. Tell us why you're here.
I'm actually the project manager on the Farnsworth Group for the Casey General Store site. They've asked me to attend on their behalf since they're out of Ankeny, Iowa. There's four requests there. I've gone through the staff report and actually talked to Gabe about one of the items in some detail. And again, I apologize for not being able to make it last week. Our last meeting, there was a wreck and then a fire, so got a little behind. So I apologize.
Appreciate that. Glad you're safe.
Yeah. So, like I said, there was 4 requests there. I'm not sure how you want to go through these.
Yeah, I guess if you would tell us in general what your request is, and then what we'll do is we'll go through the statutory criteria individually of each of the 4.
Okay.
And then I will turn it over to anybody else who can speak, which is not here already. Then we'll open up the board, and then we'll address each one as part of the vote goes. So,
okay. All right. Like I said, Casey's General Store is looking to develop a store on North Graham Road and County Line Road. So the last step in order for them to get ready for construction, actually talked to the construction manager trying to get it released to construction. So they want to make sure they've got their signage in place. There's 4 requests. One is the pylon sign. Has to do with the square footage of the sign. Gabe and I had some discussion about that, and we'll go into a little more detail about how it's calculated. That's really why we're here, is the size of the sign. There was signage variance request for the signs on the front of the store and then on the canopy as well. A number of logos on the canopy and the size. On the canopy, I think they're only allowed to have 2, totaling 18 square feet. There's 3 and they're like 18.5 square feet total. So just a little bit over, just a number on that. So on the canopy. So you just want to have it on all 3 sides that face the streets. So.
Okay. Well, do you have your second quarter, your answers to the statutory criteria in front of you?
I do have it here.
We will walk through that. We'll start with variance request number 1, which is the request to deviate from section 10-3-08 and the off-premise signs allowed by permit. You're requesting to place 3 wall signs on the front storefront, exceeding the 1 that is allowed. With that, the approval will not be injurious to the public health, safety, morals, or the general welfare of the community because.
Oh, you mean?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry, I wasn't very clear. I'll get you started. If you would respond, we just got to get it on the record. You know, it's on the document.
All the adjacent zoning classifications are commercial, adjacent to the south, across the streets. It's in Marion County, but they are generally commercial use in general, from what I recall. I can't remember exactly how I worded it on the application, but they're all the same general classification. The number of signs, the square footage, I think, is less than what's permitted. It's just they're breaking it up into a Casey logo sign and then some marketing stuff on the front of their store. But it's all less than the allowed 100 square feet.
Okay. And number 2, the use and value of the area adjacent to the property, including the variance, will not be affected in a substantially adverse manner because.
Again, everything is commercial in that location. Most of the adjacent parcels currently are vacant, and I think there's some development talk on some of those. Cummings is looking to go across the street. Pretty big office complex, but generally it's all commercial and office up there.
Okay. Number 3, the strict application of the terms of the zoning ordinance will result in practical difficulties in the use of the property because.
I guess strict interpretation, there's really no adverse impacts if variance was granted to the adjacent parcels, from what I can tell.
Well, do you have your responses in the report?
I just got what the staff report that Dave gave me.
Maybe page 3.
Page 3.
Where it says variance 1.
Oh, there it is.
Petitioner's proposed detailed statement of reasons. Set in there.
Okay, I was a couple pages back.
Yeah, the strict application of the terms of zoning ordinance will result in practical difficulties in use of property and codes.
Again, the total signage area, as I mentioned earlier, is that they're proposing is 70.4 square feet. There's 100 square feet permitted. Adequately sized and posted signage is critical to Casey's marketing and customers seeing seeing the stores there, being able to get in, and adequate signage and advance notice of what's coming up.
Okay. And then number 4, I'll do, which is the structure is not regulated under Indiana Code 8-21-10-3. The FAA has approved the building height through the review process.
That's correct.
Okay, so for variance number 2, which is for the deviate from section 10-3-8, menu of on-premises signs allowed by permit, gasoline sales signage. The square feet of the full sign exceeds the allowable 100 square feet. And it looks like you are looking for a sign that measures approximately 201 square feet the way it's designed with separation. So for variance number 2, the approval will not be injurious to public health, safety, morals, or general welfare of the community because.
Actually, before we get into that, I did have a couple of things I wanted to go right. When we first started talking about this, when I was talking to the city staff, and we were like 120 square feet versus 100. And when I got this report, when they came in, said it was 220. And I was like, what's the difference in how they were calculating it? And that's where I want to make sure we understand where I'm coming from now, because I thought it was only asking for variance on 20 square feet. And then it came back and said, oh, no, you're more than double. And I've got some exhibits here I'd like to go over if possible, just kind of show you what our thinking is. And again, we'll follow requirements, but just wanted to pass these out real quick. So just real quick to kind of go over it, and what I understand is the way the square footage is calculated, it's a box effect. Basically, they take a box around it. And, the first 2 signs, I mean, yes, I understand. I mean, the box is the entire sign, like the target, the white part of the sign, so you got to be able, it gives the contrast. The second one on the Walgreens, the same thing with the red. The Casey sign is kind of an unusual thing because there's a lot of open space, and that's really kind of how, when we look at the calculation, sheet 3 is kind of what it looks like, and then sheet 4 kind of shows you how the open spaces. I mean, if it's a box calculation, it doesn't really make sense because the majority of the sign is actually open air. I mean, when you look at a sign like that, you don't picture it as being a big rectangle with a sign in the middle of it. Kind of look, and that's kind of where we're coming from. It's like, what do you really see? What is the square footage of the sign really out there? And again, I understand the code says they do a box. But when I did the box calculation myself originally, I came out like 126 square feet. I broke it into components. And then when I was talking to Gabe, I was told, no, you need to take the overall width, the maximum width times the maximum height, and you get 221 plus or minus square feet. Currently, the Casey's, between the Casey's logo and the fuel signs, there's an open area in there. And then between the 2, the fuel panels, we got some more open areas. So if we took it just by the different components, just put a box around those things, add them up, we're like around 118, 119. Take out the air, we're down to about 107, 108 square feet. It's kind of where, it's kind of how what I was looking at it. So it really gets back to, we're going to take it, certain interpretation of the overall dimension instead of taking it by components and doing a box component on it. So that's kind of what Casey's asked me to come down here and talk to him about. It's like, there's about 100 square feet that's just open air. It's not really a sign. It's just
Oh, okay, so with that, let's go through. The approval will not be injurious to public health, safety, morals, or general welfare of the community because.
Sure, I'm on number 2. Again, currently all the adjacent parcels are vacant. Existing zoning classifications are all the same, commercial and/or office on both sides of County Line Road and the surrounding property. They're all the same zoning classification.
Okay, number 2, the use and value of the area adjacent to the property. The variance will not be affected in a substantially adverse manner because.
Let's see. Again, the zoning classifications are all the same, compatible with the Casey's General Store as is proposed.
Okay. And number 3, the strict application of the terms of the zoning ordinance will result in practical difficulties in the use of the property because.
This really gets back into when there's signage off the interstate, people coming in trying to find a fuel station. The pylon sign actually gives them adequate knowledge of where the store is located. Entrances are coming up, so there's not a lot of late-minute lane shifts or things like that. They've seen that with some of the pylon signs in a congested area. I mean, excuse me, monument signs in a congested area. So an adequate warning, here's Casey's store or an Exxon or whatever it might be, a fuel store. Adequate notice to make a change in the lane.
Okay. And the number 4, the structure is not regulated under Indiana Code 8-21-10-3. So for variance petition number 3, which is requesting to deviate from section 10-03-08L, menu of on-premises signs allowed by permit, gasoline sales signage. You're requesting to replace 3 canopy signs, which exceeds a maximum of 2 per gas station. You're requesting to place 1 each on the west, north, and east face of the fuel canopy. So again, number 1, the approval will not be injurious to the public health, safety, morals, or general welfare of the community because.
Again, all the zoning classifications on adjacent parcels are the same or similar.
Okay. Number 2, the use and value of the area adjacent to the property included in the variance will not be affected in a substantially adverse manner because.
The zoning classifications are the same on adjacent parcels and they're currently undeveloped.
Number 3, the strict application of the terms of the zoning ordinance will result in practical difficulties in the use of the property because.
Again, it's another way for the signage to provide the traveling public adequate notice of the location of the Casey store we're looking for.
Okay. And then number 4, the canopy signage is not regulated in Indiana Code 8-21-10-3. The canopy height has been approved by the FAA through the review process. All right. The final one, number 4. So number 4, you're requesting a deviation of section 10-3-8L, menu of on-premises signs allowed by permit. Gasoline sales signage, you're requesting permission to install signs on the fuel canopy. Did I do that one? No. The last one was to do 3 instead of 2. And this is to install signs on the canopy, 1 on each, the west, north, and east face. Total square footage of the signage is 18.42, exceeding the allowable 18 square feet. So for number 4, the approval will not be injurious to public health, safety, morals, or general welfare of the community because.
The adjacent properties are zoned compatible with what the Casey zoning classification is, and they're currently vacant.
Number 2, the use and value of the area adjacent to the property included in the variance will not be affected in a substantially adverse manner because.
Adjacent properties are currently vacant.
And number 3, the strict application of terms of the zoning ordinance will result in practical difficulties in the use of the property because.
Again, as mentioned before, the signage gives adequate warning and direction for people looking for a Casey site.
Okay. And number 4, the canopy signage is not regulated in Indiana Code 8-21-10-3. The canopy height has been approved by the FAA through the review process. Have you seen the staff's summary and proposed conditions for each of these?
Yes.
So number 1, there is no objection, and they do recommend approval with condition that the wall signs substantially comply with the elevation and signage drawings submitted with the petition. Number 2, as you discussed, there was some objections to the space of the sign, creating the size of the sign. As you alluded to, they did have a recommendation to remove the gaps, also to widen the base poles, the support poles that would allow you to do 2x2 on the diesels, on the unleaded and diesel signs between those wider poles, which would help reduce the overall size of the sign. Is that something that would be a consideration, or do you have any objections to that?
Widening out the poles, I don't have an answer for that one, to be honest. They never got back to me how they wanted to do that. But all their signs are pretty much the same, get the same manufacturer, same, they're all put together the same way. I think they would like to keep the poles the way they are. Reducing the gap, I think, is something that can be done.
And then number 3, again, that they just substantially comply to the elevation signage drawings submitted, and the same with number 4. Anything else to add?
Not at this time, other than I just could repeat myself.
Okay, then anyone else have anything? Steve, Mr. Davis? Sure. Mr. Davis, you be sworn in by the secretary.
You swear no penalties, perjury, testimony directed is true to the best of your knowledge.
I do. We had a lot of discussion over the,
Yeah, Mr. Davis, if you could be over the microphone. There you go.
we had a lot of discussion over this pole sign. So I would like to just share a little bit about that and our reasoning and rationale behind it. So this is a page out of the Unified Development Ordinance. This is how we measure all of our signage. Now, it wasn't simply a box drawn around the sign. You get 2 cuts for an oddly shaped sign, which is shown here. The problem is the sign has 2 voids on it. There's big voids to the lower left and lower right. There's big voids to the upper left and upper right. So no matter where you take those 2 cuts, you still end up with a very large sign, because honestly, those 2 cuts are within a few feet of each other, just the way that sign's laid out. So this has been in our code. That's just the way we calculate every sign. I want to show you some other cases. This is the one in Greenfield. They only have 1 fuel price, and the sign's much smaller. This is the Casey's just up the street in Indianapolis. Yeah, it's lower. There's only 3 price indicators. Now you look down towards Franklin. This one doesn't even have pole sign. It's right on US 31. Same thing in Brownsburg. On US Highway, it's ground sign. This is why we're against the request for additional signage area on the pole sign. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Wood, you have 5 minutes if you'd like to respond.
I'll get out of the way.
Yeah, I think the one difference is that this location's almost right off the interstate. Signage is important when you're closer to an interstate. Most of the other sites actually did site design on those. Sign program that they're using has changed as these sites have developed over the years. The reason the other signs only, or the locations only have 3 signs, they didn't have E85 at that time. They now have E85, and they want to advertise that to those people who have those alternative flex vehicles. They think it's important. So as things change, you know, those things morph. I understand that. Understand that the way the signs calculated the ordinance. There's a lot of open area at the sign, so that's really their concern. Trying to take some of that stuff out. They can take some things out. They can take the gaps out. I don't think they can widen the poles because I mean they use the same pole manufacturer, the same structural analysis has been done. They don't want to have special signs out there because maintenance becomes an issue later on. So.
Okay. Anything else? And now close the public hearing. Open up the board. Mr. Fuller, questions or comments? Mr. Foster? No. Ms. Stevens?
Well, I guess my only concern is the suggestion by the staff report of having 2x2 on the fuel pricing. We would make it look stupid. I'm not seeing that because they are uniquely different. We want to highlight their meeting time separately.
Well, I think
but I'm not sure what the letter ADA is. That's something new. I've never seen that. They're saying they got 2 and then 2, and I'm not sure what that's.
So
it would look kind of funny because it would be so small compared with the name that I'm not following how that would make it look like a more attractive sign. I'm just struggling with trying to understand where the city's coming from.
Yeah, I think it's,
Am I able to, is that a question for staff that I'm able to help with, or?
yeah, I mean, I guess what is the vision of how does that, I was struggling with that too a little bit, Dale, and how that helps alleviate space. I know it, if you go 2 by 2, you still have that bottom height, right?
It would reduce the overall sign area because you'd be squaring off that lower portion of the sign a little bit. And you'd also be able to bring them up closer to one another or tighter. So that those cuts
That
are,
seems different than
so that
questioning that.
so that those cuts are more meaningful and you can use the cut at the top of the sign.
Yeah. So you will make these cuts here and.
Well, I guess I'm struggling with how that's meaningful.
Yeah, I think there's a compromise somewhere. It does seem like there's a lot of space that can be addressed. It does seem Casey's has a wide variety of signs throughout many of their locations, just on what we saw today. So, but I also struggle with the fact that we measure a sign based on a lot of space.
But I do agree with the convincing taking out the interim spaces, but I'm struggling with the redesign proposal.
Some of those other areas too, might, their sign ordinances might not allow full signs, only monument signs. So varies by community, obviously.
Well, I think it possibly varies by where it's locations. I mean, it's important to me as a driver to know where my gas stations are that I prefer. And if I prefer Casey's, I want to find where it's at. And if it's not a whole sign, I'll never see it. So a whole sign have no issue.
On a personal note, if I can't see it from the interstate, I don't exit.
Exactly.
No, that's absolutely correct.
Because I hate to get off that exit that says 4.5 miles that way.
And I don't know if the rooster on top is absolutely required, but that does seem to add quite a bit of open space just for that piece of the top of the sign.
Yeah, to be honest, I was actually looking at it, something I would have to talk to them about, but I think that might be something they can work with. I noticed on a couple other signs it's gone.
Yeah, I noticed that.
And I hadn't noticed that before in some other stuff I've done.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Are all the notices and receipts and everything in order?
Yes. Yes, and in the file.
And certified copy of the comprehensive plan and the unified development order are also in the file for the record.
I will take a motion to accept them all.
Chairman, I move that we admit all the evidence presented with regard to this matter, including the notices, receipts, maps, photographs, written documents, petitioner's application and attachments, petitioner's detailed statement of reasons, the staff report prepared by the planning department, certified copies of the zoning ordinance and comprehensive plan, testimony of petitioner, city planning staff, and any remonstrators and all other exhibits presented, be they oral or written, for consideration by this board in regard to this petition, and to include the testimony of those present this evening.
That's that motion. That's to your second, Mr. Fuller. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries 4-0. Right, I will take a motion on variance number 1, request number 1, to replace 3 wall signs on the storefront. Could be approved.
The request with the additions from the staff evaluation.
I have a motion to approve with the one condition from planning. Motion by Mr. Foss, second by Ms. Peters. All in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries 4-0. Number 2, to request to install dual face full sign that exceeds allowable 100 square feet.
Before we have a motion on that. So what's the direction we're giving this gentleman as to go back and, before we approve or deny this one, what's our direction? Obviously we had discussion, but what are we looking for? What's allowed? What will we allow and what can't he do?
So my question, I guess, to Sean or I planning staff is the request is to exceed 100 square feet. So we put a limit on it. We want, if we accepted it, we can accept it as requested. If we deny it because we feel more work needs to be done on the sign, then they would need to come back just for that piece if they wanted to still exceed 100 feet.
But they needed a variance, yes.
So we could ask to deny it as it is because you want more work to be done. Then they would have to come back again, or you could put a condition on, such as you'd like to see the top part or whatever.
So we could put a condition saying the removal of the rooster and convincing the open space between will be approved at this point. If that's not acceptable to them, then they have to come back again. Is that the way I'm understanding it?
Yes.
Okay.
How would you do that? What you want to do with the variance request?
Is someone prepared to do a motion?
Sure. I mean,
You'll have to go back.
yeah, you'll have to go back. I mean, we're going to put a condition on it, but it's still going to exceed 100 square feet, which is what we're looking for, but we're just asking to condense it.
I can certainly talk to them about that.
So if they're not acceptable to that, they have to come back and apply again. So
You're talking about removing the rooster off
Rooster
the top
and
and
then
the
single
air
space.
spaces, both of them.
yes.
Okay.
So-
Give a motion.
The motion is to approve based on removal of the rooster and closing up the spaces between the gas price signs. Condense that area so that we've got basically one solid sign.
So the condition would be the one that is on the staff report to, for the sign panels to be placed closer together, remove the gas, and then add the removal of the rooster.
Yes.
Have a motion. Second by Ms. Peters. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries 3-1. Number 3, request to place 3 canopy signs. This exceeds the maximum of 2 per gas station.
Chairman, I recommend that we approve with conditions to the staff report that they will substantially comply with the signage.
Motion by Ms. Peters, second by Mr. Foster. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries 4-0. Number 8,
Right.
install KC signs on the fuel canopy, one on each of the west, north, and east face of the fuel canopy.
Mr. Chairman, we approve your request with the staff condition.
Motion by Mr. Foster,
Second.
second by Ms. Peters. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries 4-0. Take a motion to adopt the findings of fact.
To instruct us to prepare.
Instruction of fair with the findings. Yes, not to adopt it.
Chairman, having considered the statutory criteria, I move that we direct the Corporation Counsel's Office to draft written findings of fact regarding their decision on the variance request presented at variance petition number BZA 2021-014. And findings, said findings to specifically incorporate the staff report, the evidence submitted into the record for consideration and adoption by the Board of Zoning Appeals as our final decision and final action regarding this petition at our next meeting.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Peters, second by Mr. Foster. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries 4-0. All right. Thank you, Mr. Moon. We'll take final action next time in 2 weeks. If you're able to move forward.
All right.
Plan, working with the plan.
Appreciate it. Thank you guys.
Appreciate it. All right. Number 4, no findings of fact, no old business. Any old business from the floor? Seeing none, we'll move on to new business, which is docket BZA 2021-015, a dimensional variance request from Tim Howard with TNW Corporation for Redeemer Bible Church at 1360 East Ray Crow Way. All those wishing to speak on behalf or against this petition, please raise hand and be sworn in by our secretary.
East Rhode Island, please refer to your testimony records to the best of your knowledge.
Yes.
Go ahead and approach the podium, gentlemen. Get your name and address for the record from each of you.
Mark Wiley, 4099 Dartmoor Drive, Greenwood.
Timothy Howard, 1680 Cape Hatteras Trail, Brownsburg, Indiana, 46112.
All right. Tell us why you're here, gentlemen.
Okay, again, I'm Mark Wiley. I am one of the pastors at Redeemer Bible Church. We are constructing a new facility at 1360 Ray Crow Way. And we are here to request a variance to allow for signage on our facility, given that the area is currently zoned for no signage. And so we're specifically requesting a variance for 1 monument sign and 2 wall signs, painted wall signs.
Okay. And you have your statement of reasons as well?
Yes.
All right, then let's walk through that if you would. Number 1, the approval will not be injurious to the public health, safety, morals, or general welfare of the community because.
Okay, so I'm just going to read this since I wrote it. The signs will be helpful to clearly identify both the function of the building as well as its location. This parcel of land is uniquely located approximately 1,600 feet north of Horseville Road, as well as being tucked in north of the Clark Pleasant Middle School and east of Ray Crow Elementary. The signage will therefore provide clear identification of this building as a church as opposed to another school building, in addition to serving as a directional aid for people seeking to attend worship and other events in the building. The painted wall signage on the south wall allows the building to be seen and identified from Horseville Road, and the wall signage on the east side will allow the building to be seen and identified from I-65. In addition, the east-facing wall signage communicates our web address, redeemerbible.church. Overall, the church will benefit and the nearby residential areas by providing a place of worship. And in addition, we've already had discussions with Clark Pleasant school officials about the possibility of using the church's worship center as an auditorium for school functions if this occurs as planned. The signage will help in identifying the location of such an event.
Okay. Number 2, the use and value of the area adjacent to the property included in the variance will not be affected in a substantially adverse manner because.
Okay. The monument sign will only sit 5 feet in height and it's designed with a simple logo and name of the church. It's going to be illuminated by an external light, which will be seen by people driving on the north-south access road that runs between the new elementary school and the church building. The sign would not negatively impact the use of the adjacent elementary school, the new Ray Crow Elementary. The painted wall signs include the church logo and name only. The south-facing painted sign allows the church to be identified from Horseville Road and as someone is approaching the building on Ray Crow Way. The signage would not negatively impact the use of the adjacent middle school as the messaging only identifies the name of the church and does not interfere with the school's property or land. The east-facing painted sign would be viewable from I-65, as well as the future softball park that's being built by the city of Greenwood. Again, this would not negatively impact the use of those adjacent properties as the sign only identifies the name and location of the church, does not interfere with any of the activities occurring at the softball park.
Number 3, the strict application of the terms of zoning ordinance will result in practical difficulties in the use of the property because.
Okay, well, this parcel of land is uniquely located. It's about 1,600 feet north of Horseville Road. It's north of the middle school, it's east of Ray Crow Elementary, so it's kind of tucked into that 16 acres right there. Again, the signage provides clear identification of the building as a church, as opposed to another school building. In addition, it serves as a directional aid for people seeking to attend worship or other events in the building. Given that the church is not directly located on a primary road, the proposed signage allows the community and visitors to be aware of the existence of the church and to more easily navigate to the property.
And number 4, the structure is not regulated under Indiana Code 8-21-10-3 because we're under 200 feet. Building is 34 feet above grade. There's one condition by the staff. Are you familiar with that? Basically, they'll substantially comply with what we submitted in the attached exhibits.
I'm not.
Yeah, they're just saying that the sign will substantially comply with the signage drawing submitted with the petition.
Oh, yeah, okay, sorry. I thought it was,
In other words, what you submitted is what we're expecting.
okay, yeah.
Anything else to add? Anyone wish to speak in remonstrance? Right, seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. Take it up to the board. Mr. Fuller?
No question.
Mr. Foster? No questions. Ms. Peters? Not by me. Is everything in order?
Yes, notices are in order for the newspapers surrounding the property. documents and they're in the file.
Certified copies of the comprehensive plan and the unified development ordinance are also in the file for the record.
I'll take a motion to adopt it into the record.
Chairman, I move that we admit all the evidence presented in regards to this matter, including the notices, receipts, maps, photographs, written documents, petitioner's application and attachments, petitioner's detailed statement of reasons, the staff report prepared by the planning department, certified copies of the zoning ordinance and comprehensive plan, testimony of the petitioner, city planning staff, and any remonstrators, and all other exhibits presented, be they oral or written, for consideration by this board in regards to this petition, and to include the testimony of those present this evening.
Second. Motion by Ms. Peters, second by Mr. Fuller. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries 4-0. Take a motion on the docket itself.
I move to approve the signage with the staff recommendations.
Second. Second by Mr. Fuller to approve with the one condition. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries 4-0. Take a motion to instruct staff to create the findings of fact.
Mr. Chairman, having considered the statutory criteria, I move that we direct the Corporations Council Office to draft written findings of fact regarding our decision on the variance request presented in variance petition number BZA 2021-015. Said findings to specifically incorporate the staff report and the evidence submitted in the record for consideration and adoption by the Board of Zoning Appeals as our final decision, final action regarding this petition at our next meeting.
Motion by Mr. Fuller, second by Ms. Spears. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries 4-0. Same thing. We'll take final action in 2 weeks, but you're welcome to move forward with the staff. Thank you. Any new business from the floor? Seeing none. Any announcements? Looks like Stevie will not be here at the 23rd. Very good. I'll think Ms. Peters let everyone know, but be sure to change the date. I don't know if it's important or not on our ballot for 014. Make sure you change the date today.
Is there any business for the next call on the 23rd?
I don't think so, because we're still working with the Tolans on the County Line Road.
I don't think we have anything for these.
We don't have anything new.
Would you like to change the time of the meeting then to like 6:45 to adopt the findings so that you don't have to sit for an hour for planning commission, or if that doesn't work for you?
You say there is agenda for planning commission on the 23rd?
Yes. Is there a
That would be whatever.
and does it negatively impact petitioners if we wait till the fall session?
They would have to be actually prejudiced by not entering the findings of fact. So the closer the better, but I think like a 4-week period would not cause a delay for them.
One of the cases is ready to come back.
Well, the decision is
They
happening.
need to.
The decision is happening. I know what the decision is. You just need to enter the findings of fact, and in the event that someone wanted to appeal who was an interested party, they would need those as part of the record. So if someone was likely to be actually prejudiced by not having that done within the 5 days, which is by statute, normally do it within 2 weeks anyway, I think you're all right. The sooner is always the best, but the case law says that you have to actually be prejudiced by not being adopted within the 5 days set by statute. Okay. Pleasure of the board.
I would do whatever the board would like to do.
I got to be here at 7.
I don't know. We'll all see that vote. It's just to move forward. So I would wait just so the three of us be here for 5 minutes, but okay. You want to wait to? Yeah, I'm quite all right. Okay. All right, then we'll move. Do we need a motion or anything to do that?
Our next meeting
Or is it just?
Well, if you don't have any business and you want to cancel there's a fifth Monday, so.
Would be like,
So,
It'll be, yes, it'd be the 13th of September. Yeah.
yeah, we should.
We have the fifth Monday this month.
In
So
August, which those.
so everything all the days should we.
We'll do it on the, we'll do it 6:45. It's fine. All right. Oh, any other announcements? Motion to adjourn. We're adjourned.
We'll tell you. They did a great job on Main Street.